hey, hey, hey.
And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there. 'Cause all I do is
You are a winner, Lindsay. You are a winner, my friend. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I am excited, ignited, and delighted to have you as the honored guest today, Miss Fashionista Lindsay Messoline. Did I say it right?
There it is.
Get it right. Please, 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 please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Messoline. I have been a teacher now for 23 years. I cannot believe that, but it is true.
Wow.
I have taught everything from preschool to college, and the last 15 years have been dedicated to adult education, adult learning. So working with immigrants, migrants, and refugees, people who never had a chance to finish school as a child or youth or young adult, those who are currently or formerly incarcerated, and other groups that are typically, underrepresented, marginalized, minoritized, especially in the field of education.
Wow, wow, and wow. You said incarcerated. I believe I have a question on here
Yes.
about that. I mean, I met you at Education 2.0, and that story that you shared, I am just going to not jump the questions. I'm going to fasten my seatbelt,
Okay.
listeners. This interview is going to be on and popping because Lindsay is spicy. Why don't you share a little bit about what you shared with me in the back green room? You were talking about how you learned Spanish
Oh,
and
yeah.
where you lived and how it's like majority of your life now. I think that's something amazing to share in this world of diversity, equity, inclusion. Please share.
Absolutely. Okay, so I am from the state of Oregon, or what is now called the state of Oregon. And I attended the University of Oregon, and I was one of the first classes at the U of O that when the U of O began offering ethnic studies majors. I was one of the only white students in the program. And in Oregon, it's a very white state. The Constitution of Oregon banned people of color, especially Black people, from living there up until about 1920. So ethnic studies for me was incredibly important. It's like I started taking these, African American history classes, Asian American history classes, Latinx American history classes. And it was just like my eyes were opening, the lights were shining on me. And it was just this realization of how I had never been taught true history or diverse history or a complete
Wow.
and comprehensive story of the place that I live, of the
You are
people.
dropping bombs, Lindsay. You are dropping bombs already, girl. Wow. For you to be so honest. My
Yes.
goodness.
I was a little 19-year-old. It was funny because at my graduation, our program was so small. The University of Oregon is very large, but our program was so small that our professors were able to actually speak about each of us as we graduated. And my professor, Mateo, described me. He was like, she was the most eager and excited and thirsty, for knowledge,
Yeah.
deer in the headlights. He was like, that was Lindsay in every single class. And she intentionally sat in the front row because it's just, once you see something, you can't unsee it. The truth
Yes.
cannot be untruthed to you.
Oh,
you
you
can't
are
fall for
dropping bombs, Lindsay. The truth cannot be untrue.
no, it cannot.
Mm, mm,
So
mm.
such began my journey. And while at the University of Oregon, I highly recommend the University of Oregon, by the way.
I
I
love
had
the
this
ducks,
fabulous, yes, go Ducks.
right?
I had this wonderful Spanish professor, and she told me, you have a real gift for this language. You kind of dove in head first. You learn about the culture. You learned about your grades are the top, but you're really never going to fully develop these language skills unless you go somewhere where people primarily speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And so there was an exchange program in central Mexico, Querétaro,
Woo, woo.
Central Mexico. It was an 8-week program. I thought, I don't know anything about Mexico or Central Mexico, but so far, these eye-opening classes that I've been taking have been nothing but positive. So I'm just going to go. And
Yeah.
off I went for 8 weeks. I fell so in love with Central Mexico that I graduated university a year early. And I'm not joking. I bought a one-way ticket. I was 21 years old, back to Mexico, and I moved to Central Mexico. I worked in, like language schools. I served in an orphanage there, just found ways to like contribute, learn. And here I am now. I'm a professional translator. I do voice work in Spanish. And I'm a Spanish professor as well as one of my, many teaching jobs. So
Lindsay, when do you sleep, girl? You have like 25 jobs. I love it.
It's true. And I love it. But later, when I came back to the US, I wanted to finish my master's degree in education and really focus on like language acquisition and bicultural and bilingual education. And I missed Mexico so much that every summer I found a program to volunteer with on the border, serving in migrant shelters and like refugee camps for people coming, recently deported back to Tijuana or planning to cross, or wherever they were at in their journey. We were there to help just provide food and services, water, the basics, but also basic education, basic training, basic English, basic literacy. And I was in Tijuana for 5 consecutive summers and just absolutely loved it. And just also very eye-opening and awakening moments, and learning the truth of, what's really going on with immigration and what the US, the role the US has played in pulling and pushing people from where they live, and really, again, continuing to open those eyes. So my eyes just got wider and wider. I just became more and more and more a deer in the headlights, but I'm more and more informed deer in the headlights, and thirsty for the truth and the reality of my sisters and my brothers who don't look like me and have a very different experience from what I have. And I found it's like a treasure trove, and it's, the more we learn, the better we collaborate. The more we collaborate, the better we grow. It just became this like snowball effect for my entire life. So I'm so grateful for all of those things.
Wow. And I'm so grateful that you are an angel on earth, that you can volunteer at orphanages, that you can sacrifice your youth to serve the people, to learn more. Someone has said, hey, I have been blessed. I have been blessed with clean water and shoes and shelter. And there are people that don't have this. And I want to give back to them. I want to help them. You are going to have a star in your crown, girl. That is amazing. Amazing. And so you are now the director at the Collaborative. Let me go to my cheat sheet here. The Collaborative Voices Initiative. Please share a little bit of your journey and how it came to life.
Yes. So as we heard the long trajectory, aside from like wanting to give back and knowing that I was born with all kinds of different privileges and, by luck, right? Like we don't choose where we're born, and we don't choose what we look like or what privileges we are assigned, yet we can choose what we do with those things. And so the more I began to, serve in these areas, the more I wanted to learn about why these areas were the way they were. And there's always a story why. We don't just land somewhere. We land somewhere, or we are somewhere because of some kind of reasons. There's always things up here. There are things down here. There are things within us. And so the more I learned about systemic issues and historical problems, the more I just, again, I wanted to dedicate my life to making sure that when I was working in education, that I was doing it with a light of truth, and to allow people to have the eye-opening moments that I had. And aside from that, as I've been teaching for 23 years, something else I do on the side, one of my other 23 jobs, is curriculum development. I do curriculum consulting and curriculum development. I have a master's degree in education. I've been designing lesson plans, training teachers and educators on how to create engaging lessons, pedagogically and andragogically sound lessons, as well as culturally inclusive and collaborative. And so for a while, for many years, I was forced to use whatever books my programs were buying. Whatever school they worked for gave us the materials and said, here you go. Any teacher out there, if there are any teachers listening, I know how much you work to gather external materials, because what we are given is never enough. And it's often not even very good. And by that, I just mean it's got one perspective. And perhaps it meets the standards and the benchmarks, but it's often offering
limited
perspective, limited view of
the world,
math, of science, of the world. And so Collaborative Voices Initiative came together because there was this great desire for me to frankly stop using my drive or my flash drives, my online drives, to just copy and paste and print all the time. I wanted to be using a book that I felt like the students got in their hands, that school or program I worked for had purchased, and I could just say, go to page 42. Instead of, hold on, where are my copies? Oh, I brought some. No, I wanted the materials to be centered in what we do. So Collaborative Voices Initiative came together. I recruited people from just absolutely diverse communities to bring their voices, specifically the voices that have been historically underrepresented, explicitly marginalized and pushed out of educational materials or society in general. And as we see now, are being banned around the country. And so we created our first book, a print book and an ebook in 2021. It was
congratulations.
Writing for HSE and beyond. It's an adult education writing book that prepares you for the high school equivalency exams, as well as gives you a really strong foundation in reading and writing. If you're pre-college, if you're getting ready to go to college, if you're an advanced ESOL learner, it gives you that strong academic foundation, but with only stories from perspectives that are historically and traditionally excluded from textbooks.
How do I get a copy of this book, Lindsay?
Oh, absolutely. You can join or just go to our website, collaborativevoices.co. .com was way too expensive, so I bought .co. Collaborativevoices.co. You can learn all about our team. You can learn all about our mission. And you can actually purchase the books. Even if you're not interested in having a copy, because I and other people on my team work with students who are formerly incarcerated, currently incarcerated, immigrants, people who, are in communities that are experiencing poverty and oppression, you can donate a book. You can actually go to the website and purchase a book for a student. And I will, or someone else will personally deliver that book to someone. And the book, I'm telling you, yes, I am the author of the book, but it is not just my words. I was the one who gathered the stories and then rewrote the stories in order to fit academic lesson plans. But these stories come from the communities themselves. And every person who worked on it was paid well, and we are still giving royalties every time we sell the books. Our editors are getting royalties, and co-authors are getting royalties, because this is a collaborative, community-based project. I don't want to just become this company that sells books and makes books, but the community who created it and the community who it's built for and built by is not also benefiting from.
Yes.
So it's a real community impulse project as well.
Nice. Yay. That is amazing. Girl, I'm telling you, Winning Workplace Wednesdays, people, you are meeting individuals that are changing communities one person at a time. And I wish that the news can cover more of these stories, because great things are happening. Great things are happening right here in the USA. It's not all, not so good. Wow. I just applaud you for being a lady of excellence, for having your thumb drive, for bringing in your extra leaflets to make sure that you share those other perspectives. But not only that, leveling up and no, I'm tired of this. I can do more. Let me, gather up the troops. Let's do this together and be compensated for all of our hard work, and change the space so that others, can really get a real day in the life of what we're learning here. And it's not just limited. It's not one way. It's so many, it's like a prism.
Yes.
There's so many different colors, so many different angles to paint the picture.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that we do at Collaborative Voices is, so it's a self-published book, because there were so many people interested in buying it that I thought, if I go through a regular publisher, we were approached to publish it through a publisher. And I was uncertain about how that was going to be handled and who would be making the most money from it. So we were able, because we self-published it, we found a Black-owned and family-owned printing press.
I saw that online last night. Yes.
Major shout out to Black Classic Press. And
Maryland. I'm in Maryland. Yes.
GoodDayToPrint.com is their website. They are so friendly, so helpful, so professional, and the books are of such high quality. So every time people are purchasing these books, they're also supporting a Black-owned and family-owned business. And then we also make a donation to tribal nations in the New York and New Jersey area, where most of us are based, to acknowledge that we are on stolen land. And so the book begins with a land acknowledgement of the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape tribal nation in the New York area. We talked with them and received their permission. as well as we make a donation with every sale, and we call it a land tax. And we got the land tax idea from Dr. Adrienne Keene of the Cherokee Nation, who gave a fabulous workshop. She's a national author. You can definitely look her up as well. Major shout out to Dr. Adrienne Keene. She talked about going beyond land acknowledgements and real steps you can actually take to put your money where your mouth is, and also, take real action. I don't own property in New York. I can't do land back, but I can at least pay those, who once, inhabited that land and who were stewards of that land.
Lindsay, you got to go into politics, girl. This is amazing.
They'll take me out on day one. They'll take me out.
Girl, this is amazing, Lindsay. You are a millennial. You are a fashionista. You're beautiful. You are going outside the country, learning the different communities, coming back and creating spaces for others, and learning about how you can bless. I mean, people have been talking about retributions for how long, but you are blessing the people and giving them money for land that was taken away, Lindsay. Who does that but you? That is priceless.
Well, again, we got the idea from Indigenous communities. All we did was follow that idea.
Yes, shout out again to Dr. Adrienne Keene. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Yes.
But that's it. You are not just hearing about it. You're not ticking the box. You are walking it out. Kudos. Woo, I told you it was going to be spicy, people. Yes. The next question I have here is the panel that you were on, which was talking about diversity. Can you please enlighten our audience by explaining the power of empathy, respect, and consistent ever forward? With the story that you mentioned, now we will go to it. The story that you mentioned, I mean, I don't know how you do it, but I know you're looking good while you do it. You're walking in with the stilettos.
I never wear stilettos to the jails. You wouldn't even recognize me in my work in the jails, because I know that, it's a fine line of trying to maintain like professionalism, and people are so stripped of, humanity and human connection. And so if I try hard to call attention, it makes it worse. And so I try to just go in, do a heart-to-heart connection, a human-to-human connection. And it is hard though, because I do love clothing. Tish and I collected. Tish, of course, looked just like breathtaking. Everybody was like, well, there's Barbie at the conference.
Stop it. Thank you.
Fashion of the day, outfit of the day, look of the day. Everyone, every day it was like, oh, where's that really elegant woman?
Stop it, girl. I loved your pink suit. I had to go. I was like, oh, talking about Barbie. I loved it.
I love Barbie. Oh my gosh. So this was a story at the jail. So I have been working in the New York City jails, primarily Rikers Island, offering GED, which is adult high school, ESOL, which is English to speakers of other languages. We don't want to say ESL. You might hear ESL a lot, English as a second language. And we don't really want to use that term because it implies that people only speak one other language. And there are quite a few people who speak an indigenous language. They also speak Spanish. People from India are speaking 7 languages by the age of 5, So we want to make sure I use ESOL or ESOL, English to speakers of other languages. So we don't belittle or diminish those who are coming at us multilingual already and adding English to their repertoire.
I love it.
So I was doing GED, adult high school, ESOL, and Spanish. So a lot of the guys heard me speaking Spanish to the Spanish speakers at the jail and were like, well, I already have my high school diploma and I already speak English. Can you teach us Spanish? And I was like, that's it. We're getting a Spanish class going to Rikers.
Yes.
So I had the GED class in both English and Spanish, the ESOL group, and then the Spanish group. And obviously my focus was high school completion and adult high school. And I had brought the book in. I didn't bring the book in right away because students who have been, pushed out of school systems and have experienced depression within school are not just going to take a book and be like, oh, this looks great. We have to consider where people are at on their journeys. I like to say it's not a justification, but it's always an explanation for where our students are at and understanding, where they're at on their journeys and how to reach them where they're at without blame, without accusations, without assumptions. That's the other thing is coming in, Little Miss Blondie from Oregon, Rikers, like many jails in the United States, is like 86% Black and Latino.
Mm-hmm.
New York is a very diverse, New York City is very diverse, but
Very
it's not
diverse.
6% Black and Latino. So we've got this
Mhm.
disproportionate representation in the jails, which
Yes.
many of us know about, right?
Yes.
And I don't, and they say 86. I did not ever see one white. I call all my people inside the jails my students. I never,
Yeah.
we don't use the word inmates, we're just their students, they're learners.
Mhm.
And I never saw a white learner myself. And I visited probably 7 or 8 different housing units and worked with over 150 students. And I never saw a white learner. So I don't know where that number comes from. I would say it's probably closer to 100%. But anyway, so we have students that are, incredibly disengaged from school because they have been pushed out. They have experienced really negative things within the school systems and are not feeling education at all. This is why we created the books at Collaborative Voices, was to create something new and see if it could connect with students who are experiencing oppression and marginalization, and read about that. Read about someone who has a story similar to theirs, or a story of joy about their community. Because we don't just talk about, oppression and marginalization.
That's right.
Light, but we also talk about joy and heroes and people who did amazing things, because there's so many amazing stories in communities that we never hear about.
Yes.
So we had a student that I came in the first day. He just said, "Hey, miss, it's really nice that you're here, but just so you know, I don't F with education. It's not my thing. I'm not into it." I said, "You know what? That's totally fine." I said, "I'm going to be here every week. If you change your mind or you want to do something, let me know." I brought in some coloring pages and some colored pencils. And I said, if you want to just color, it's a good way to reduce stress. It calms the adrenaline. So he sits next to me and starts coloring. And then the following week he was like, "Hey, do you have any more of those pages?" And I said, "Yeah, come sit down with us. We're going to do a math lesson today." And he's just kind of sitting there. He's kind of observing. Some students are like, "Hey, I'm ready to go. When is the writing class start?" Do not let anyone tell you that people in jail do not want services, because it was like a swarm of people. "Do you have a book? Do you have a lesson plan? Do you have a homework?" I would love to. Oh, they made me call it jail work. They're like, "This is not our home. You got to call it jail work." So they were like, "Do you have jail work? Do you have things?"
Wow.
Anything. They were thirsting for anything. So, but this one student was particularly reluctant. And so by the second or third week, I said, "Hey, I brought you some coloring sheets, but I also brought you a few worksheets. Do you want to just take a look at them?" Because I was curious also what his reading level was. And I knew he didn't have his high school diploma. And so he started looking at the pages, and there were pages from the book. But again, I didn't bring the whole book so as not to just overwhelm him, but rather give him a light and nice introduction into what we do.
A little taste.
Doing it. And he turns to me and just maybe 10 minutes in goes, "Hey, miss, how do you spell pedagogy?" And I was like, "Excuse me, 19-year-old locked up at Rikers Island. How do I spell pedagogy?" Amazing. You cannot make assumptions about learners regardless of where they're at, what their stories are. And he was talking about, it was a perfect answer for what he was answering, long story short. So little by little, he finishes the packet and he asked me, "Where did you get these worksheets?" And I said, "Well, I wrote them." He was like, "You wrote them?"
Wow.
I said, "My community, we put these together. I wrote them in this certain way we need to write for, GED and high school completion exams. And I created these lessons around them." And he was like, "If I had ever had material like this in school, I never would have dropped out." And again, I hate the term dropout. We like to use the term push-outs. So I said, "Well, you were pushed out, but maybe you would have fought harder to not be pushed out, or I don't know. You would have found a teacher that you could have connected with, who brought you materials that brought you alive." And he said, "Well, do you have more of these?" I said, "I actually have a whole book." I brought the book to him the next week. I was going to be gone for the following 2 weeks. I came back that third week. This young man had completed the entire book from cover to cover, a 153-page textbook. He was like, "This is the best book ever." And he said, "It felt like I was learning. It felt like I was listening to stories I already had experienced. And it felt like a journal." He said, "It felt like a personal journal where it mattered to tell my stories." One of the first questions in the first activity is, "What's your name? Who gave you your name? Does your name have any meaning to you? Do you like your name, or would you like to change it to something else?" And he said, "I don't think anyone's ever asked about my name before. Nobody's ever given a crap where my name came from." And he's like, "I didn't even think about it." And so it was this deep dive while he's developing very academically sound, powerful skills for school. He's having this experience that he's never had at school before. He is feeling connected. He's feeling seen, heard, and empathized with. If I walk into a jail without empathy, or if I
You're gonna last.
at any job without empathy, and I don't ever consider where the person sitting across from me is coming from, I have lost. I've
Yes.
completely lost, especially in jail. They're so suspicious. They're like, I can't imagine how many social workers or teachers or whoever's that were supposed to help them who look exactly like me and who just further continued to pile on the crap that brought them to where they are now. So
Wow.
they are so suspicious. But the more they see that genuine love, and
Mhm.
not an inappropriate love, a love for humanity, a
Unity.
human
Amen. Yes.
connection, a visualization of their story, caring about their
You
story.
matter, you exist.
Yes. And I mean, he was raving about that book. And he was telling everybody, yo, you need to get this book from Miss L. Like, this book is so good. He became like my commercial for the collaborative
Wow.
voices inside the jail. And all of those books, of course, were donated by generous community members. So it has this power. The more we empathize, the more we bring compassion, knowledge, like the
Yeah.
more I learned. Yeah, it's not just this young man's job to educate me about his circumstances. It's my job to look at systemically what's happening to contribute to these circumstances and bring
Yes.
that knowledge in, and then use that knowledge to form that empathy and that compassion, and then hear his story, recognize his story, and put a microphone under his voice.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
not voiceless, but I can amplify his voice and I can help him discover that voice and find value in that voice.
Absolutely, of which you did, because when you came in, he couldn't care less. But when I'm sure you can still come there, but I'm sure he probably graduated
Yeah.
or
Oh, he
finished.
did. He graduated and he's been transferred to another facility. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's amazing. Kudos to you again. I love that. When you share that story, I was like, man, powerful, so powerful. I mean, I just had to have you on to share it. The world needs to hear that people like you are making a difference in your workspace. That's what you do
Yes.
day in and day out, and you are winning, my friend. And that's why you're the guest today. Let's see what I love it. Let's see what we have next for you. Wow. What a story. I believe there are so many awesome experiences organizations such as yours are offering every day. Do you ever partner with nonprofits or corporations to assist with equity and inclusion so they don't struggle with tokenism?
That's a good one. So we do collaborate. The goal of collaborative voices is just to work with other organizations. So recently we partnered with with the New York City jails. Unfortunately, they are canceling their external contracts. So most likely I will not be able to go back.
Oh
Yeah, as of June 30th, that's the latest. So unfortunately, maybe I can get them to buy the books at least so that we've got the books going into the jails, to the students. Yeah, it's been a hard one. But we partner with a Black-owned business out of New York that had an online learning platform, and they offered a lot of technical training.
no.
But they were looking for a GED, an adult high school program, to add to their platform. So we worked with
Nice.
them because they had the tools. I do not know tech. I can barely use my phone. Like, I am not gonna lie. Like, I'm not a true millennial. I'm actually like an exennial. I think I'm on the cusp, but I'm not at all. Like, tech is like my worst enemy. But anyway, he had the tech tools, and we had the educational, team and the writing team to bring to life like this vision that he had. And we also collaborate, like as I said, with like the state of Delaware had hired us at the beginning of the summer to provide professional development and teacher training on they bought the book, but even if you don't buy the book, like how do you inspire teachers who are largely white, who largely serve students who are not white? And how do we look at that honestly? How do we approach that genuinely without cultural appropriation, without
Any unconscious bias or any
unconscious bias, your positionality, all the
yes.
things that are so crucial. And again, I'm still learning too. I'm not saying I'm some expert, I bring the stories of my real experience. I also receive trainings from my own team members who are like specialists in unconscious bias, and come from communities that are incredibly marginalized and have really powerful stories to share. So I mean, tokenism is a big one too. I think a lot of people, we see for like Black History Month, every bank is like MLK,
Yeah.
Frederick Douglass, like Harriet Tubman. It's like, I'd rather see that than see nothing, to be honest.
But there's so many. Oh my gosh. It just
so much more that we can do. Like I said, looking for the opportunities you have to partner with like Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, people with disabilities-owned businesses, the queer community, LGBTQ+. Like, there are so many ways, there are so many like eye-opening moments for me in creating the book, even where I was like, I don't know anything about this. And I hired this disability consultant who was phenomenal. There's also a really wonderful woman we featured in the book about disability consulting, and she does speeches, and she's a Black disabled woman, and she talks a lot about, in Hollywood, you can either be like disabled or you can be Black, but you could never be both. Like, how dare you put a Black person in a wheelchair? Like, Black person is enough diversity, and a wheelchair is enough diversity. And what is her name? Valissa Thompson, Vilissa, Valissa Thompson. Again, major shout out to her. Her story is featured in our book. But we had a disability consultant as well. Just these eye-opening moments where you're like, being open to your own unconscious bias. Like, regardless of what your positionality is in the world or what privileges you have, you probably have some. And learning about those privileges and then finding unique ways, like I said, to put your money where your mouth is. Like, a land acknowledgement to me is like better than nothing, I guess. But what can we do to go beyond that? And who can we listen to figure out how? Like, as I said, like, I appreciate that you commend what we do. Like, that warms my heart that people are like, yes, you should be doing that. And I'm like, and who told me to do that? Dr. Adrienne Keene of the Charity.
Yes.
You know, how do we learn from communities who have been speaking for thousands of years, who are still speaking?
Yes.
Center their voices, bring their voices to the forefront. And so if you're going to do just Black History during Black History Month, can you bring in some actual people who can tell stories and invigorate your staff and do things in a unique way? You know, like, yeah, you can definitely hire me, but like, I'm not a Black person. I do not have the lived experience that a person who is trained in DEI / has lived experience to go with it. Like, listen to your community. Like, go beyond sticking up Harriet Tubman's face. I mean, don't get me wrong, Harriet Tubman
did a lot. But there's so
many. Well, are you joking? Like, these
girl, trust me, I went to Howard University. There are so many amazing in my community, as well as Latina. You know, we're about to enter September. You know, that's their Hispanic Heritage Month that goes into October. Then you have November for Native Americans. I mean, everyone, I think disability is in the fall as well. There's just so much for us to realize that there's so much to learn and grow and to push ourselves and to establish a goal, a stretch goal, so that we can learn and grow something new each year.
Yes. And I think, of course, another Black woman said something amazing. Ijeoma Oluo, fabulous author, Nigerian author, talks about privilege in one of the most powerful ways I think I've ever heard someone speak about privilege. She says, and I'm probably going to misquote it slightly, but she says, you know, acknowledging privilege is not about saying that people with privilege are always wrong and people without privilege are always right. It's about acknowledging that there are missing pieces of the puzzle.
Yes.
So if we think of our privileges as our little pieces of the puzzle and the privileges that we don't have or that we don't understand, people who are experiencing oppression because of our privilege, not as I'm always wrong and they're always right, but rather, what pieces of the puzzle do I not understand about my community, about my sisters and brothers, about the people around me? And it's not this, like, I know people feel so attacked. And I'm like, I was in an ethnic studies class just being like, this is amazing, you know? Like, what if you just take that deer in the headlights and missing pieces of the puzzle? It's not about being right and wrong. Of course, there are a lot of rights and wrongs when it comes to privilege, but when you're in the learning space, remove that, like, well, I'm not always wrong. No one's saying you're wrong necessarily. It's a missing piece of the puzzle. And it's an opportunity for you to open your perspective, to see something new, and to hear a voice that has been most likely historically excluded from your perspective.
Yes. I mean, no one knows everything. No one knows everything. You know, we're not perfect. We are really not. And so do a dance. There's no wrong or right. Stop being so black and white. Let's color and have different shades of gray. You know, let's learn and grow. I love learning. I don't think, oh my gosh, you know, I don't think I'm trying to study for a test in November, but I'm like, I don't think I'm going to ever stop learning. It's just so like, man, wow. I learned, wow. Okay, tell me more. You know, it's just so refreshing and it makes you sharper and brighter and better when you learn something new each day.
It literally makes you better at what you do. Like, the only reason I'm this successful in curriculum development, I wrote that book in 3 months, obviously with the help of my community, but like 3 months, we produced that baby because we have been diving into these diverse perspectives. We have been educating ourselves. We have been living. It's the core of what we do.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it was amazing.
Girl, I am going to get a book for myself, and I'm going to make sure that I get a book to donate for someone who may not be able to get one. That was so great. And all your partnerships, kudos again. Oh my gosh, I wrote down Felissa Thompson so that I can do some research as well. And it'll be so great if I can speak with Dr. Adrian Keene in November as well as I do my lineup. So let's go to the next question. What are some of the challenges you're seeing within the library systems and selected textbooks by some schools?
Well, I mean, as I said, this is like why Collaborative Voices was started in the first place. And especially now, I mean, we're not only seeing like the same old, like the old problem was every year, these like big publishing houses would just produce like a new fancy new cover, but it was the same material. So if you had a book, I don't want to name any of them in case they come out of me, but we know these big publishing, these big textbook publishers, right? And it's like one year they would come out with, you know, edition 1 and then it's edition 2. But if as a teacher, believe me, I look at these books left to right, front to back, upside down, forwards, backwards. There's barely any changes in it. And so every year, the schools I work for are buying more and more and more books, thinking that they're getting something new or better. And it's not. It's not relevant. It's not updated. Like, you know, the reading and writing stuff that we wrote is very relevant. It's very current. It's very now. And when we feel like our stories are not necessarily relevant or current, we'll make another edition with completely new and updated stories.
Yes.
About, you know, just like reprinting and fixing that one typo or now the book is edition 2 and I can sell 2,500 more. So the big issue is that there's not an update to anything. And what we have noticed, especially like in the adult high school realm, the exams are becoming actualized. Like they are very relevant. There was a sample question on the website that said, a sample question was an essay question discussing the pros and cons of the militarization of the police. Like we're talking relevant 2020 and on material. And so if our books are talking about, you know, Charles Lindbergh gave this speech on this day. I'm not saying we don't need to look at where we've come from. Oh my God. Just like, can we also explore like how where we've come from has brought us to where we are? Like how do we connect the past and the present instead of just continually like, let us read the Gettysburg Address yet again. It's like, I'm not saying don't read the Gettysburg Address. I'm saying
put some spice on it. How can you do it different?
I don't know, one of Obama's speeches and make something that is relevant and that our students have lived and that they
or see currently.
And so for me, like I think the K-12 does a lot better job of it because the K-12 education, there's a lot more government like regulation, overseeing, and like standards. For adult ed, it's not willy-nilly, but it's much more willy-nilly. And so there's kind of just like, you know, let's just print that same book as last year. Let's just print, and everyone's like, all right, we'll just buy the same one. We'll just buy the same one. I don't have a lot of experience with the libraries. I know libraries are always, at least in New York, are like hungry and thirsty for the latest and most updated things. So like I'm currently trying to get our book into the library.
Yes.
But for the publishers, it's really, you know, it's a money-making business. It's capitalism. And, you know, like they're just trying to sell more books. And the easiest way you can do that, let's do that. And you know, if you're a capitalist, you can't really throw shade at that. So it's really just as an educator, like what can we do to, actualize and update and connect like the material that's in there to what our students are seeing.
Yes, man. And some of the books, I have a friend that's a librarian, and, you know, she's just trying to weed it out, you know, and just like we were like exactly what we're talking about, you know, make it a little bit more fresh and relevant. Some is just really dated. Yeah.
And again, like if you look at like all the speeches I know from the past are typically men. And they're typically white men, right? There's like a president or there's like Kennedy. And like you can argue that like Abraham Lincoln did some great things and Kennedy was this great leader. It's not necessarily untrue. It's just like, even if you get like a Black perspective, it's typically MLK or Fred Doug. Like it's somebody, it's usually
Malcolm X.
Like occasionally, they often consider Malcolm X like too out
and radical.
Oh, Malcolm X is in my book. Don't you worry about it. He has such great quotes books about education.
Yes,
Like, how could you not
absolutely.
include it?
Absolutely.
But even so, it's often men. It's often cisgendered perspectives. There's never a disabled perspective. FDR was one. We get occasionally, but again, it's always men. It's always cisgendered men from the past and typically white. And so, again, like even if you are, there's value in what you have. Like it's as I said, it's not a complete story. You're giving students this one perspective and sort of telling them that like this is it. This is the whole story. Don't worry. This is enough. No, it's like, no, like there's so much.
That's right.
Like you said,
That's
there's so
right.
many and so much. Like, why aren't we like, and again, when you see the power that representation and connecting to learning materials has for learners, like you're addicted to it. Like I wanted to write 10 more books. I was like, there's no demand, but I'm going to write them anyway. You know, like it's so exciting when you see a learner tell you, I'm not interested in school. And hey, 3 weeks later, I finished the entire book. Like you see it happen. And then you're like, this is powerful. There's got to be more than just this. There's all of this.
Yes. Wonderful. Woo. I'm loving it, and loving it. Let's go to the next question. And it reads, let's see, yes. The Collaborative Voices Initiative is made up of a team of 10. What are the core values of your organization that you also look for in a prospective collaborator?
Oh, I love this because we're always bringing on new collaborators. Like whenever there's a new project, I'm like, who do I know in my network who would be great for this? You know? And so Tish, get ready. I'm sure you'll be
I just need a weekend of silence. There's so many articles. I actually got poached by 2 publishers in my LinkedIn inbox, like, okay, we know you have a book, like is somebody going to publish it for you? But I'm definitely thinking about self-publishing because there's so many stories that I got to share, and pass on to my legacy. So please, if I could ever write something, definitely, but I definitely want to talk about narcissism in the workplace because it is so draining.
Yeah.
But yes, we can talk about that.
So we look for people like Tish. No, so we look for people typically that we collaborate with are people who like have been speaking and want to amplify their message, looking for a way to contribute and collaborate in a way that's like unique to them. So like we had a trans woman, a Black Latina trans woman, Tatiana Furman. I also highly recommend. She's got a great Instagram, by the way. It's very entertaining. We love you, Tatiana. Just incredible woman, very instrumental in getting all kinds of laws passed for, trans women and hormonal treatments covered by Medicaid, just fabulous story. And she's already got like this amazing, she's a speaker, and so people are speaking, people are doing this work. And so our goal is to find those who are already doing the work and who are interested in sharing that perspective or looking at something we've written and contributing to that in a unique way, some kind of contribution in some kind of way.
Something fresh.
Yeah. And we look for those who we know are typically, also excluded from hiring. Like it's difficult to get a job, or they're going to look at you kind of weird, or people going to be discriminated against you for simply existing how you are. And so, we do try to look like, for people specifically from marginalized, minoritized, and racialized communities in at least one way or another, and who want to amplify what they're doing and make a contribution in some kind of way. And so we've got like video editors and language editors, concept editors, sensitivity readers, like all kinds of things coming at us. And we're always looking for new collaborators. So like people who've got like a great product and they want a review, like a teacher review or writer review from like a diverse and inclusive perspective. Like we love to do those kinds of things, or anything where we're talking to teachers or talking to educators in some kind of capacity. Like we just love it because everyone we talk to is like drooling, they're like champing at the bit.
Yes.
Because they're like, gosh, I have wanted this, or I've been doing this too. Wait a minute. We're not brand new. We're not some fabulous brand new product, a brand new idea. We're just like driving it in and we refuse to relent. So those who are looking to continue to do that work and make a bigger splash than what they're currently making, that's who we love to collaborate with.
I love it. Individuals who have created solutions, did not take the perspective like, you know what, we're about to do this. You can definitely benefit from Collaborative Voices Initiative. Wonderful. What is your current project? And if you have anything else lined up in the pipeline?
Well, so our most recent, as I said, was working with the state of Delaware and creating teacher trainings and professional development So they had purchased the book. So a couple of programs have done this where they bought the book and then we come in to actually train their teachers on how to best use it. Like, how did we create it? Why did we create? What did we have in mind when we had this lesson plan? Because again, as a teacher, those of you who are educators, there is so much stuff. Like, just group principals, like, we got this. This is a new app. It's coming. You're just like, great. Here's 80,000 new things I have to do now. Like, I'm already struggling to keep us afloat. But so we come in and say, like, here's how we did it, why we did it. Here's how we envision you using it. And then like this brainstorm opportunity for teachers to look at, like, how could I use this? How do I see this being beneficial? Because educators, we know what we want to do, in our classes too. So, that's one. We're working with more and more adult education programs. So a lot of people are buying the book and then we come in to train on how the book works. And then we are currently looking for grants because the program that I mentioned, the gentleman who had the online learning platform, they had a grant, I think, supporting it. And unfortunately, the grant was suspended. So that project has been on hold, but we're desperately seeking, well, not desperately, we're beginning to seek grant funding to fund it ourselves. And he has the platform and we have the content, and then we would co-own it. And it would be like available nationwide, an online GED program created from a collaborative perspective from qualified educators who understand what students need, but also with these voices that are typically and historically excluded, and in a way that's empowering, but now is also online.
I love it. It's going to happen. You're going to get the grant. You're going to collaborate. And most of all, it's going to be available for more than just him and his organization, but for anyone who wants
anyone could type it in. It's not even going to be very expensive. It's super accessible. Like, so those are our exciting projects in the works.
Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff, people. You got to stay tuned to get your copy online. Just put in your credentials, whoop, whoop. It'll be right there. What is your greatest accomplishment?
Ooh, my greatest accomplishment?
You've done so many things. Oregon, Central Mexico, the West Coast, Rutgers Island. I mean, you talked about Bermuda, working with the Prime Minister.
Oh, right, the Ministry of Education. Oh, that's coming up soon. Oh my gosh. That was supposed to be at the end of August, but the person who had organized it had to go out of town for another work project. So I think we're looking at the late fall for that one. So the Ministry of Education, I'm not sure with Bermuda, but I know they have a lot of programs for people who are incarcerated in Bermuda, and they're looking to revamp or ramp up their incarcerated education programs. And so they are talking with Collaborative Voices Initiative, which would be super exciting because that's where our heart is. Greatest accomplishment. I think for me, honestly, like, I'm so glad that we decided to like publish everything on our own and keep everything in-house, because we could then, I don't want to say control, but we could at least see from start to finish, like, what our product looked like. I know that not everybody has the capacity to publish on their own. Like, I just kept my head down and just worked. I took on every extra class and project during 2020 because it was very, like, the lines around for the supermarkets was just like too jarring for me. And so I was like, let me just work 12-hour days. And I made a lot of money and I just squirreled it away. And where were we spending our money during 2020, right? So I saved it up, but I know not everybody has that capacity. But I think for me, like, being able to, from start to finish, watch where this project goes, and again, not control, but make sure that every step of the way is in alignment with our mission and our heart. Like, that to me is the absolute most important thing. Doing things that are authentically Lindsay, or authentically Collaborative Voices, or authentically inclusive, that are genuine to who I am and my values. And again, that's not true in every job or every step of the way. And sometimes, a job is a job because you need to pay for your family, and your family is your heart and your mission. Everyone's mission is different, but whatever we can do to like center that mission and make sure it's at the heart of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I'm so proud of you.
It's a privileged perspective, I know, but I'm really grateful for that.
But you are, oh my goodness. There is one of my clients, and we were covering sponsorship and advocacy and having individuals who may not be in a marginalized group to speak up, to invite to events, to help promote and help others, to have those opportunities. So you're doing your part big time.
Yes.
I'm telling you, you have many blessings that are going to be poured out on you, my sister, for all the wonderful work that you are doing. I can hear the angels singing now. Like, yes.
So sweet. I didn't know I was gonna come here and be showered with love and
No,
compliments.
of course. It's always about love. Always about love.
But thank you.
But
I
yes,
really appreciate
self-publishing is
that.
amazing. That's so, so amazing. Congratulations. What is the one thing you want the viewers and listeners to take away from our interview today?
Whew. I hate when it's one thing. Obviously, I'm an extremely
Top
verbose
three. Top three.
person. Concise is not a word anyone would use to describe me, or quiet.
Mhm.
Concise or quiet. No. I would definitely say, like you just said, for those of us who, yes, I'm a woman, and of course I experience marginalization, in unique ways. But white privilege, able-bodied privilege, cisgendered privilege, I carry a lot of privilege with this body, this outward-facing positionality. And I think, as I said earlier, and you kind of just touched on it now, was regardless of what your privilege is, like what are, to quote, Miss Oluo, what are your missing puzzle pieces? And where are there opportunities for you to learn and like just let go of, like, instead of saying I didn't know that and now I'm pissed about it, say like, wow, I didn't know that. Like come at things with curiosity instead of like this like defense, and so looking at what your missing puzzle pieces are, and as you said, like what are your opportunities to open up doors for others that they might not have access to, that you have access to because of your positionality, and where can you pass that microphone, or as I said, no one is voiceless. We don't have a voice for the voiceless. Everyone has a voice. How do you take whatever microphones you've been given and put them under someone who's been given fewer or no microphones at all? And what do you do with that, and how do you go from there?
Yes, I love it. I wish you a safe trip to France.
Thank you.
You have so much on your plate. I'm loving it. You are living your best life.
Oh yeah, I'm going to France for the fall. That is true. I'm also learning
Yes.
French as we speak. I have French class tomorrow. I haven't done my homework yet.
Oh my goodness. I know that you clearly speak English, Spanish fluently. Are you fluent in French as well?
No, I'm functional in French right now because it's so similar as a Romance language. It's pretty similar to Spanish, especially the grammar and the structure of it. The pronunciation is killing me. I pronounce everything like a Spanish speaker. So instead of saying I'm saying un, and he's like, no, un, no, and I'm like, oh god. But it's again, it's that opportunity to learn when you want to learn something new and you want to challenge yourself in some kind of way. It's like, find it and do it because it's really fun and I love it. It's horrible and hard and I love it all at the same time.
Girl, I cannot wait till you master it.
Oh my god,
I'll
call you in like 6 months and be like, je pas français maintenant.
Ooh, I love it. Merci, mademoiselle.
Look at us, we're so amazing.
I know, right?
Some French speakers are like,
It has indeed been my pleasure. You are beautiful, not only on the outside, but in your pitter patter, your heart, in your mind, when you think about others, in your spirit, you draw people towards you because you have a heart for people. And you use your platform, you use your privilege to uplift others, to give a hand up. And for that, I salute you, my friends. I thank you for being my guest today on Winning Workplace Wednesdays. I'm going to ask you to stand by. Folks, here you have it. I would love for you to share your website one more time so that people can buy a book, they can gift a book, and if they're looking for consultation services when it comes to writing and giving a different purview, you are the lady. Here's your commercial.
Please visit collaborativevoices.co. Collaborativevoices.co. You can learn all about our team, see our services, purchase our books, donate a book, and learn about our mission as well. Learn about the companies we collaborate with, and quite a few people that I mentioned today are listed there as well. So, you can also message us, and I get the emails directly. Like, it looks like this big fancy platform. It comes right to my email. Like, you want to contact me, you go to collaborativevoices.co. Get in touch with me. Get in touch with my fabulous, amazing team. And yeah, let's find a way to collaborate. What can we do? Where can we go? How do we grow? How do we bring more diverse and genuine and authentic stories and perspectives to whatever it is that you might be doing?
I love it. Beautiful people, thank you so much for visiting Winning Workplace Wednesdays. Please stand by, Lindsay, and make it a wonderful Wednesday on purpose. Until next time, Keep shining. Toodles.